Apple's hardware domination is coming earlier than we were expecting. All cars may have to be monitoring you while you drive, and Canada's internet was taken down by a few beaver. Let's get into the hot news, my friend. I'm your host, Brett. We're going to be going over the hottest tech news that I can find on the internet and talk about the new report that's coming out that Apple's next generation Apple Silicon processors, the M2 as it's now known, although previously the code name was M1X, nobody really knows for sure at this point. It has reportedly gone into production, and the expectation is that it might start shipping in July of this year in the upcoming MacBook Pros, the 16 and 14-inch models, and potentially even the iMac Pros that are coming out in a little bit as well towards the end of this year. Not much is exactly known of the M2, however, we are expecting that it's going to be significantly higher performance than the M1 that's currently out. It's hard to say whether the M2 and the M1X share some of the same ideas, but it's supposed to be up to 32 cores as opposed to the 8-core situation that we have going on in the M1. And if this happens, it's just going to continue to hurt Intel because they have not updated their hardware hardly at all since Apple's made this move. And it's been shown that the Apple Silicon on the M1 is highly capable, so getting an advancement within a year that could potentially even double the performance would just put them in a league of their own, which is going to leave Intel and AMD scrambling to be able to keep up. And I'm scrambling to keep up with living outside of my house and being in Airbnbs all the time. And I can tell you one of the things I miss about being home is today's episode sponsor, ButcherBox, because it's so simple to have all of my meat delivered straight to my door with ButcherBox. We're not doing it while we're here because we're not staying long enough to get our full delivery, and we had to postpone it before we left because we weren't home long enough. But it's so easy and convenient to get a delivery of ButcherBox because it's meat delivered for free right to your door. Each box is perfectly packed and portioned for your needs, and they have premium meat, 100% grass-fed beef, free-range organic chicken, pork that's been raised crate-free, and wild-caught seafood. And they want to make high-quality meat accessible to as many people as possible, and that's why they're able to deliver the best products for less than $6 per meal with free shipping. And if you use our link in the video description for ButcherBox, you're gonna get 2 pounds of pork chops and up to 3 pounds of chicken breasts and 2 pounds of ground beef for free in your first box. That's a lot of free meats, my friends, for free by just clicking the link in the video description. ButcherBox is a very convenient service as well as just great offers. Check them out at the link in the video description. Big thanks to ButcherBox for sponsoring today's episode of Hot News. Now let's get back to some Apple news, because it's been reported that Apple will now have to honor warranties in Spain of up to 3 years, as well as providing repair parts for a period of 10 years, as opposed to the maximum period before, which was 5 years. So this is going to increase Apple's responsibility to its customers in Spain because the Council of Ministers has approved the extension of warranty period of products sold inside of Spain. And in yesterday's episode of Hot News, we talked about how Spotify was potentially going to be launching a competitor to Apple's subscription-based podcasts that were going on, and it has happened with Spotify launching that, but you have to have your podcasts hosted on Anchor. It's not for every podcast that could potentially be put on Spotify. You have to go through their service of hosting it, as well as the fact that you're not going to be able to do it within the app. You're going to have to go over to Anchor to do it. So it's not a really simple solution of supporting your creators, and Spotify is not going to take a cut until 2023, at which point they're only going to take a 5% cut. However, this just seems like a reactionary play, not fully fleshed out and kind of half-baked and pushed into a side part of their business just to say that they have it, rather than a fully fledged implementation that Spotify should be proud of. I don't know, that's how I'm viewing it. Speaking of half-baked implementation of things that should be fully fledged before you roll them out, let's talk about some legislation that got introduced to the United States Senate regarding driver monitoring systems that could potentially be in every single car by 2027. On Monday, it was proposed in legislation that this would happen not just in fully autonomous vehicles where driver monitoring systems are prevalent now, in order to make sure that the users don't get lax behind the wheel because they think that the car is doing the majority of the work for them, and so they stop paying attention to the road. This would apply to all cars in all respects, regardless of their autonomous capabilities, which, at least in my opinion on this, is way too far. I can understand driver monitoring systems when you're trying to make sure that somebody is alert when they otherwise could just be completely against everything that's going on and can't implement a driver-free system until we have developed further levels of autonomy in our car driving. But to have driver monitoring systems in just regular basic cars that have no support except for to say, hey, if you're distracted, you're not allowed to drive. Okay, well, my kid's having a seizure in the back of my car. You're not letting me drive my car because you've deactivated the driver monitoring system, but I'm trying to make sure he's not dying. I can make sure that there's nobody in front of me, turn back for half a second and look at him. I'm very sensitive about these kinds of things because I have situations where I have to turn around in order to take care of my kids. Obviously, this could have a whole range of different implementations, how frequently the driver has to be monitored, et cetera, et cetera. Let me know what you're thinking of the legislation down below in the comments. But let's continue on the talk of autonomous vehicles because Lyft has decided that they are completely done and they're selling their self-driving unit to Toyota for $550 million. Lyft is agreeing to take $200 million up front with $350 million over 5 years. And the team that's a part of the full self-driving unit will still have jobs after this. This is part of Lyft's plan in order to become profitable. This isn't the first time that this has happened. Uber also selling off their full self-driving unit where they were going to roll out autonomous vehicles. Once they're able to cut all this R&D spending off of their balance sheets, they should have an easier realm of getting into the profitable region. Speaking of profits, Tesla posted another record quarterly profit, making nearly $500 million in total profit, which is up 70% from a year earlier. It's slightly down from Q4, but Tesla also saying in their earnings call that the Model 3 is the best-selling premium sedan in the world, and Elon Musk expects that the Model Y will be the best-selling vehicle of any kind by the end of next year. They also talked briefly about the Model S and Model X delays that have been going on. The Model S refresh should be happening sometime soon. They also talked about how they have made significant mistakes when it comes to their solar roof project and that they underestimated the complexity of roofs and rolling all of that out, which enraged a lot of people when Tesla nearly doubled the cost of a lot of solar roof projects that already had contracts in place. And so they said, hey, you either have to pay more or we're just canceling everything outright. And in order to make amends, they're apparently offering free Powerwalls to those people, which they're expensive things, which is a good benefit to be partnered in, but it was also kind of rude of Tesla to just renege on a contract that people had already signed with the company. And I guess if you really want to enforce it, you'll have to go into legal action in order to make it stick. And Tesla's trying to make recycling stick, reduce, reuse, and recycle, my friends. There's a battery and motor recycling facility that's anticipated to be built at the Gigafactory in Shanghai. And Husqvarna is building up my anticipation. Pay attention, Reece. I know you can get me one of these. Husqvarna showing off its first electric street bike with 62 miles of range, 8 kilowatts of power. It's a smaller bike, but it's a beautiful one. I absolutely appreciate what Husqvarna is going for here. Reece, you get me one, okay? I'll pay for it, but you make sure I have dibs on this. Talk to your people, Reece. While Husqvarna is rolling out their first electric bike, Honda is expecting to be fully electric by 2040, or at least fully electric as well as fuel cell vehicles by 2040, and them wanting to be 40% of their vehicle sales of those things by 2030 and 80% by 2035, taking on the electric revolution. Ford is taking on battery development, not battery production. They have announced their battery development center in Michigan. The Global Battery Center of Excellence will be called Ford Ion Park, where they're going to research how to make batteries, but not actually build them themselves. Bose wants you to keep your information to yourself. At least now they do after customer outrage. It was reported that in order to use the Bose Music app, where you would control things such as the equalization or the noise cancellation of the things you bought from them, such as their noise canceling headphones, you actually had to create an account with Bose in order to make all of this happen. People got upset. Bose has now implemented an update so that you don't have to do that anymore. And you don't have to believe everything you see anymore. I don't know if you thought you did, but not anymore, especially with the internet. Things are fake on the internet. And there's a new report that's out about deepfake satellite images that could pose serious military and political challenges, where a University of Washington-led research study showed how they were able to develop different maps based on just different things that they can manipulate and submit those and make it look like they were actually legitimate map markings, just changing things in the topography, changing the buildings. Potentially, if this was used in a military application, you could put a bridge where there was no bridge, mislead people to where, you know, you could keep them vulnerable and then create a situation where you have a military advantage because of deepfake. This is something that I thought was intriguing because I've only thought of deepfakes in the context of videos and, you know, my face being superimposed on Rick Astley, but not actually faking maps. And all over the maps you see stop signs, and ADT wants Ring to stop using their sign, which is conveniently in the shape of an octagon, which is the shape of a stop sign. ADT saying that Ring has copied its trademark by having a blue octagon. As you can see here, light blue octagon on the left from Ring, dark blue octagon from ADT on the right. Trademark infringement, ADT's upset. And Amazon saying go into people's houses, even they have Ring protecting them, so go deliver the groceries into their garage, with now Amazon rolling out in-garage grocery delivery in all of the centers that they have in the US cities for their grocery program. So that has rolled out to over 5,000 different US cities, whereas previously it was only available in roughly 5 or 6. And roughly only 5 or 6 people in Canada have internet, especially after a cable-chewing beaver takes out a town's internet in a uniquely Canadian outage. The beaver dug a 3-foot hole, chewed through fiber conduit and the cable itself. This wasn't all of Canada, this was just Tumbler Ridge, British Columbia, who lost service for 36 hours when it turns out that beavers had dug 3 feet underground and then chewed through a 4.5-inch thick fiber conduit and took out the internet for them. And because they severed it at multiple points, they caused a ton of damage and made it so that the repair took a really long time. And there's repairs that are going to have to be done for a really long time between the relationship of Apple and Facebook, because Apple is done with Facebook shenanigans. You should check out that episode of Hot News from yesterday right over there. I'll catch you in tomorrow's episode starting at 9 a.m. Eastern. See you tomorrow for Hot News, friends. Cheers.